You touched on the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act earlier, and President Biden signed that into law last year. I want to read some of what was included in that legislation, and if you think there are any other areas where Republicans and Democrats can work together. It encouraged states to enact red flag laws, enhances background checks for gun buyers under the age of 21, closes the so-called boyfriend loophole, and provided around $11 billion to improve mental health programs. Do we see any other room for bipartisanship when it comes to gun control?
Absolutely. This was an extraordinarily meaningful act, but it was by no means the end of the story in Congress, and in fact, it's not the end of the story of bipartisan action in Congress. When we look at Americans and their view on gun policy, when we look at background checks and assault weapons ban and red flag laws, you see sometimes as high as 85% support. And that means Democrats and Republicans, non-gun owners and gun owners alike, all agree on this. So this is very much a bipartisan issue. The change that needs to happen is in our leadership. And some are catching on that this is a bipartisan issue. This is a public health problem, not a political disagreement. And we are seeing them, change their mind, change their tune, change their vote. We need more of it, and we need it fast because we really can't afford to wait.
Some people, largely Republicans, do say this isn't about guns, this is about mental health, that it's about the person, not the weapon. House Speaker Mike Johnson, who was just elected into leadership this week, said this last night. At the end of the day, the problem is the human heart. It's not guns, it's not the weapons. What do you make of that type of thinking?
Well, with all due respect to the new speaker, think it's a bit disingenuous. If he's got a plan to change American hearts, I'd love to hear it. Mental health is a problem in this country. There's no doubt about it. That was one of the most meaningful parts of the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act, was so many resources going into mental health. But we're not the only country with mental health problems, right? Many Western countries, industrialized nations, have mental health problems, bad ones. What they don't have access to is an arsenal, so that when things really do go badly in their lives, when they do have a mental break, that the first thing they reach for is a weapon designed to kill. That's the thing that makes us, unfortunately, exceptional in this regard. It's not the mental health problem, it's the access to guns.
This has been a national conversation now for years, and I've been talking to members of Congress now at Forbes about gun safety, gun measures in this country for over a year now, and it's almost like a copy paste, just change how many numbers of mass shootings there are, which is, it's indescribably painful. That's how it is now. So what do you think needs to be added to this national conversation that you think's missing?
Well, in one respect, I think it's got to be kind of more of the same. It's got to be more pressure, more vocalization of Americans' beliefs. And some Americans are going to need to go to the polls and vote exclusively on guns, because they are going to have to break with their party if we're gonna make this change. But I do think that there's a lot of other voices out there that we are seeing joining the gun violence prevention movement, and those are really important. And one, I think, particularly relevant to your publication is business. Business can say, you know what, mass shootings, not good for business, not good for the American economy, not good for the workforce, not good to attract international talent to come to this country. Increasingly, people are not relocating here, not coming to school here like they used to, because the pervasive gun violence problem just shocks their conscience. So I think the business community is one really important one, but among other sectors that are getting involved, that are lending their voices. And, at the end of the day, when you do the straw poll on this, you just have the vast majority of Americans, of American business sectors of all stripes supporting these laws. But we're going to have to keep pushing. We're going to have to get individuals getting involved, get over the cynicism that is really understandable given the inaction at the federal level in particular, and make the difference that we can make.
The Gun Violence Archive has that right now that there have been 566 mass shootings in this country to date, just in 2023. We're not live right now, so obviously that number can change. That's more than one mass shooting a day. And people say after a mass shooting, hey, now's not the time to get political. But is there a time to get political because there are more than one a day?
Well, I think you've got it exactly right. If we were to wait for a pause, we would never have the conversation. So the time is always now. The time to act is now. The time to have the conversation is now. And to honor the victims of these mass shootings, we have a responsibility to act, and swiftly.
And what's your message to Congress and President Biden now in this wake of another tragedy?
Well, it's the same as always. You were elected to represent the American people, and your principal job is to keep us safe. You're not doing that job. You need to pass laws that the American people want, and it's time to act now.